If your surname is on this list, you're connected to Scotland's national story. Not just a clan, but a fight for the throne itself. 10 more surnames, continuing where we left off. Stay until number 1. This man never wore a crown, but Scotland remembers him more than most kings who did. By the end, you'll know exactly where your name fits into that story. A king who won back a country. A knight who guarded a throne. Or a name a prophecy once claimed would end in silence. Let's start with number 10. Number 10. A man kneels at an altar in a stone church in Dumfries in February 1306. Moments later, he stabs a rival claimant to the Scottish throne, right there, in front of the altar. That man was Robert the Bruce, and within weeks, he was crowned King of Scots anyway. The murder of John Comyn made Bruce an excommunicated outlaw before he was even fully a king. He spent years afterward as a hunted fugitive, losing battle after battle, hiding in caves and on islands, before finally turning the war in Scotland's favour at Bannockburn in 1314, defeating an English army several times the size of his own. Bruce's dynasty, the House of Bruce, held the Scottish throne for 2 generations before it passed, through his daughter's line, into the House of Stuart. If your name is Bruce, your bloodline didn't just fight for Scotland's crown, it committed murder in a church as the first step toward taking it. Even the famous legend of Bruce watching a spider persistently rebuild its web in a cave, inspiring him to keep fighting, comes from this same period of hiding as a fugitive. Number 9. In 1437, assassins broke into a king's own bedchamber and were held off for crucial extra seconds only because a lady-in-waiting jammed her own arm through the door bolts where the bar had gone missing. It wasn't a Robertson who did that, but it was Robertson men who hunted the killers down afterward. Clan Donaghy, the Robertsons, captured the murderers of King James I within weeks and delivered them to the new government, earning royal favour that secured their lands in Highland Perthshire for generations. Their motto, Virtutis Gloria Merces, glory is the reward of valour, still commemorates that loyalty. If your name is Robertson, your bloodline didn't kill a king. It caught the men who did. Number 8. What if a small chapel in the Scottish countryside held carvings of plants that shouldn't exist in Europe, centuries before anyone from Europe reached the Americas? That's the mystery behind Rosslyn Chapel, built in the 15th century by the Sinclair family, Earls of Orkney, and hereditary patrons tied to centuries of Scottish Freemasonry. Carvings inside appear to some observers to resemble maize and aloe, fueling generations of speculation about Templar treasure and hidden voyages nobody wrote down. Historians mostly dismiss the wilder theories, but the Sinclairs themselves genuinely ruled the Orkney and Caithness earldoms for generations, controlling one of the most strategically important corners of medieval Scotland, regardless of any legend. If your name is Sinclair, your bloodline built a chapel so strange that 6 centuries later it's still the subject of documentaries, novels, and arguments nobody can quite settle. Whatever the truth behind the carvings, the chapel itself was real enough to survive Reformation-era destruction that flattened most of Scotland's other Catholic monuments. Number 7. A woman was burned alive in a barrel of tar in the 17th century for predicting exactly how a powerful clan's fortune would end. And 200 years later, it reportedly happened exactly the way she said it would. The Brahman seer, Connacht Odder, is said to have told the Countess of Seaforth that her husband's line would end with a deaf-mute chief who outlived 4 sons, and for revealing it, she had him executed. In 1815, the actual chief of Clan Mackenzie, Francis Humberston Mackenzie, was indeed deaf and mute from childhood illness, and did outlive all 4 of his sons before the direct line died out. Whether the prophecy is real history or legend retrofitted after the fact is still debated, but the Mackenzies themselves genuinely held the earldom of Seaforth and vast territories in Rochester for centuries. If your name is Mackenzie, your bloodline's ending was supposedly predicted 2 centuries in advance, and then it happened anyway. Number 6. In 1745, one man's single word started a rebellion that nearly toppled the British Crown. Donald Cameron of Lochiel was the only major Highland chief Bonnie Prince Charlie truly needed to convince. Other clans were waiting to see what Lochiel would do before committing themselves. When he finally agreed to raise his clan for the Jacobite cause, hundreds of Camerons followed him into a rising that would end, less than a year later, in catastrophic defeat at Culloden. Lochiel himself survived, wounded, and fled into exile in France, never to see Scotland again. If your name is Cameron, your bloodline's single decision may have decided whether the last Jacobite rising happened at all. Quick pause halfway through. If you're enjoying tracing your name, subscribe now so you don't lose us. The next few names carry outlaws, dukes, and one man Scotland has never stopped mourning. Number 5. For over 300 years, this family stood one broken marriage away from the Scottish throne itself. The Hamiltons descended from a daughter of King James II, which meant that whenever the Stuart royal line looked shaky, Hamilton claims to the succession resurfaced. The family rose to become Dukes of Hamilton, among the most powerful nobility in Scotland, fighting court battles over precedence for generations. If your name is Hamilton, your bloodline spent 3 centuries as Scotland's permanent backup plan for a king. Number 4. A Scottish king once invited an entire outlaw clan to a friendly meeting under a promise of safety, and then hanged 36 of them on the spot. The Armstrongs were among the most feared border reiver families, raiding cattle and terrorising the lawless frontier between Scotland and England for generations. In 1530, King James V lured their leader, Johnny Armstrong, to a meeting at Carlinrigg under a guarantee of safe conduct, then executed him and most of his men regardless, purportedly to prove that no family, however powerful, stood above the crown. If your name is Armstrong, your bloodline once ruled the border through fear alone, until a king decided that fear had to end, whatever it took. Centuries later, in a strange tryst of history, an Armstrong descendant helped write a very different first. Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. Number 3. Not every powerful family needs a battle to prove it. The Earls of Ross held one of the oldest and largest earldoms in medieval Scotland, controlling much of the Northern Highlands for centuries through steady political marriage and land management, rather than dramatic conquest. The line eventually merged into the crown itself when the earldom was absorbed by the Stuart kings. If your name is Ross, your bloodline held power the quiet way, and kept it long after louder families had burned out. Number 2. Sometimes a clan's story isn't a battle. It's a slow fade. The Buchanans held lands on Loch Lomond for centuries, one of the older recognised clans in the Highlands. But the direct chiefly line quietly died out in the 18th century, without the dramatic wars or executions that define most names on this list. If your name is Buchanan, Your bloodline's story isn't a tragedy. It's simply one that outlasted the need for one. And now, number 1. In August 1305, a man was dragged through the streets of London behind a horse, hanged until barely alive, cut down, and executed by disembowelment while still conscious. Then cut into 4 pieces, sent to separate corners of Britain as a warning. His name was William Wallace. He was never a clan chief or a nobleman by birth. He rose from relative obscurity to lead a Scottish army to a stunning victory over the English at the Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297, becoming Guardian of Scotland almost by popular will alone. His defeat at Falkirk in 1298 ended his formal command, but he kept fighting in secret for years, evading capture until he was finally betrayed in 1305. His execution was designed to erase him as a warning to anyone who resisted English rule. Instead, it made him a permanent symbol of Scottish independence, one that helped inspire Robert the Bruce's own campaign in the years that followed. If your name is Wallace, or if this story simply feels like yours, your name carries the memory of a man Scotland refused to let England erase, no matter how hard they tried. Centuries later, the tower built on the hill above Stirling to honour him still stands taller than most castles in the country. A monument to a man who never held a crown, a title, or an inch of land in his own name. 10 more surnames. 10 more roads through Scotland's fight for its own crown. Drop your surname in the comments, and if part 1 or part 2 connects to your family, tell me which one. Subscribe for more hidden histories behind the names people carry every day. See you in the next one.